Hi there. My name is Lisa Mason Ziegler, and I am a commercial cut flower farmer. I'm an urban farmer, actually, and so I farm in the city, and I have a small farm. It's only a little less than 3 acres, but my home and buildings are on that property, so my garden's about 1.5 acres. And we produce a lot of flowers on this little farm. We do all natural practices. We are not certified organic, but do our best to follow along those lines. And part of our program here on the farm is that we use a lot of cover crops. So I am going to share with you today how I use cover crops in my garden, and how you can perhaps do that whether you have equipment or not to turn it under. I think you can apply it at every level. So why would a person want to have cover crops? If you have a vegetable garden that's 10 by 20 or you have an acre garden, cover crops have a place in every garden. They suppress weeds. They add a lot of organic matter when you turn them under into your soil. They support wildlife. They provide blooms for pollinators. They're just generally a healthy part of a healthy garden. And they're beautiful also. So I'm going to share with you how I do it. So my garden is set up with uniform beds, meaning they're all pretty much the same size. Whenever we have a bed that has a crop, we pull a crop out, or let's just say for right now, this is fall. We're getting ready to go into fall. We plant about 1/3 of our garden in spring crops in the fall, flowers, hardy annuals. So that area of the garden is squared away. It's got plants planted, it's mulched, and it'll go through winter. The rest of our garden, we don't want it to go through winter with bare soil. So we plant what are called cool season cover crops. And there are 2 that I favor for different reasons. One of them is winter rye, cereal rye, which is a beautiful tall green grass. You plant it in the fall. It'll grow about this tall usually before winter sets in, and just looks like the most lush lawn you've ever seen. It goes through winter, protecting your soil, providing habitat. The birds just adore it. Flocks will fly in and just vanish within the grass because they're eating all kinds of bugs and seeds and all kinds of stuff. So we really like planting winter rye. So that goes through the winter as a thick cover. The other fall planted cover crop that I favor is crimson clover, which is a legume. And that means that a legume takes nitrogen from the air, absorbs it, and puts it into the soil. So it's a great soil builder. It grows into a nice little cover before you go into winter, and the goal is to plant a cover crop about 6 to 8 weeks before your frost date so that the seeds have time, at least 6 to 8 weeks, time to germinate and grow into these plants that are going to go through the winter, because once winter comes it just sits there and kind of looks frozen, but it doesn't kill it. I'm in zone 7, by the way, in southeastern Virginia, So fall plant either winter rye, crimson clover. Once spring comes, both of those start growing again. If you want to incorporate them into the soil, which is the point for most of us, you incorporate the crimson clover just when it gets beautiful and starts to bloom. The reason you get the maximum nitrogen back into your soil at that point, but another really important point that nobody ever mentioned to me that I had to figure out the hard way is that the plant is the most tender at that point, meaning it's the easiest to turn under and it breaks down quicker. If you let the plant stay and it blooms and goes on and starts to set seed, not only will it reseed in your garden, which may or may not be desirable, but the plant tissue is tougher. It takes longer for it to break down. So turning a cover crop in at its proper time is really important for that reason. Winter rye, I don't think, can be turned under with a shovel. So if you don't have equipment, I would shy away from winter rye. But crimson clover is fairly easy, that if you have a small patch that you want to plant in a cover crop, crimson clover would be a great choice. There are other clovers that are more perennial, which means that they don't die. Be cautious of that. So you really want to get a variety. There are a couple other names of crimson clover, but you want an annual clover. So we turn them under, then you give them a couple, 3 weeks to break down, and you've just added, for us on our farm, a bed that's 100 feet long, 3 feet wide. We've added a lot of organic matter by doing that. So that's what we do in the fall. Go into spring, you have to keep in mind, if you're cover cropping in the fall, that an early planted bed cannot be cover cropped in this way, because you don't have time to get it turned under, have it break down, and ready to plant in time for early spring crops. So you kind of have to think ahead for all of that. During summer, we really use a lot of cover crop. My favorite cover crop for summer is buckwheat. Buckwheat goes from seed to bloom in about 30 days. Every bed that we take out a crop and we think, oh gosh, the transplants aren't quite ready yet, it's going to be a couple of weeks, I plant buckwheat because it grows that fast. And it provides a beautiful cover to protect your soil from the heat, from the sun, and it provides an amazing habitat. We have buckwheat almost all the time on the farm once the temperatures are warm, and it is loaded with every kind of pollinator, dragonflies, beneficial insects. What helped me to be able to be a better cover cropper is to always have a bucket with a lid with cover crop seed ready and waiting. We always have a 50-pound bag of buckwheat, try to have a big old bucket of crimson clover, and whatever you're planting on your garden, just have it. Keep it dry and cool, and it stays good for a while. And so we plant that bed, and then when the transplants are ready, we turn it under and can almost plant immediately, because the great thing about buckwheat are the stems are hollow straws. So it's like straw, which means that it's really easy to turn under with a shovel, and it breaks down super quick. I mean, we can almost plant next day with buckwheat because we use a tractor. But when you're using a shovel, it's also really, really easy. So buckwheat is my summer choice. There are a couple others that I've grown, and it depends on what I'm doing. Cowpeas are another summer crop, but I'll tell you the mistake I made with that. It's kind of, it's more voluptuous. It takes up more space. It kind of starts to vine. And this is the crop that I learned about. You better turn it under when it's tender. I let it go too long. Even with a tractor, we barely could get it turned in. It was like chopping up logs. It was terrible. So I'm going to try cowpeas again. It was a strong germinator. If I was starting a new farm, and I was going to cover crop for a couple of years to get a new garden in shape before I started planting it, cowpeas would definitely, it's a legume, so it adds nitrogen to the soil and tons of organic matter, so that's a good one. Another one we've grown is Japanese millet, which looks kind of, like any other millet, and that one is a strong germinator, but if you don't turn it under before it goes to seed, as with almost all the cover crops, it will reseed in your garden. So it's really easy to kind of think it through and to think how you can incorporate some of these cover crops. So we do cover crops in beds, and we do cover crops in large sections of our garden. It just really depends on what we have going on in our garden and the time of year. Right now we have a whole half acre that we're letting rest, and we're just cover cropping it with different cover crops. They all have benefits. So it's really significant and important to add cover crops to your garden rotation, no matter how small or large your garden is. It's a easy way to add lots of organic matter to your garden. It's a great way. Some cover crops, another cool season that we've grown they're called groundhog radishes. They're actually daikon radishes, and they grow about as big as my arm, and they are great for busting open compact soil. So you put them in the ground in the fall, they grow big. They winter kill a little here in Zone 7. People up north can get the maximum use out of these because they get winter killed. Then the radish rots and leaves these amazing deep ruts in your garden that you would have had to have put with a garden fork or something. So groundhog radishes are another great fall planter that we use here. So you can also use cover crops to loosen soil. So I hope this helps you. You can see down below, there's a little bit more information below this video on cover crops, as well as we do sell organic cover crop seed, the ones that I use most often. We try to keep them in stock year round, so give it a try. And one thing I do want to point out is when you plant cover crop, you need to cover the seed. If you're in a garden, rake it. In a big garden, if you have a tractor or a tiller, lightly cover it. Just run over it quickly, only going about that deep. The seed needs to be covered to germinate, and that keeps birds from taking it. So thanks a lot. Please visit our website, thegardenersworkshop.com, because we have a lot of videos that'll help you garden and farm. See ya.